Three, two, one, two, three, three, four. Welcome back to the Literature Lounge. I'm your host, Dion Robinson. Welcome back to the Literature Lounge. I'm your host, Dion Robinson. Thank you for joining in on the show. I am back with the sixth installment to Sierra Alpha Prime series. Within this series, before I get started, I want to apologize for not posting anything last week. I have been doing a lot of experimenting with working with audio files to give you the best narration as possible. I am working between two platforms, which is called, the first one is called naturalreaders.com and the other one is called SpeechLow. And the reason for that is because I'm trying to find a way to distinguish Joilee's voice in the Palmer video logs, which that way it won't be confusing what's going on with the story. I'm not going to hold you any further, so please enjoy the sixth installment to the Sierra Alpha Prime series. Thank you.
Palmer Video Log. Dr. Joilee Raina James. July 17, 2459, CE. Shortly after discovering the energy source inside a temple structure, I encountered an indigenous humanoid race. The natives share biological similarities to humans except for a few physiological differences. Their facial structure is more defined with sharper features, the eyes and ears are larger. Their noses are elongated and flat like a lion, except they have a rigid structure at the bridge of their noses. Their ears are also larger and pointed. Their hair is decorated with tribal trinkets. The clothes are red and white as they were proud to wear them. Most of their bodies were covered with tribal tattoos that look similar to mantra designs.
After a day of rest, Joilee found herself inside a jail-like prison. She still had her Palmer that was hoisted on her hip. She took out her Palmer to perform a sonar scan of the cell. She hoped she could find a hollowed spot within the walls to escape. She found nothing but pictograms etched in the wall. As she observed the artwork, a humanoid child figure came to her cell to retrieve her. Joilee extended her hand in a friendly gesture. The child humanoid mimics Joilee and extended his hand. Joilee quickly grabbed his wrist and pricked his hand for a blood sample with the Palmer's syringe. The syringe transmitted data to the Palmer, which gave information about the alien's blood. It appears that the native race and humans share 85% of DNA in the double helix structure. Joilee found the reading fascinating. The humanoid pushed Joilee against the wall. He quickly pummels her. However, it does not affect Joilee. Joilee snickered as she thought it was cute, as the young alien punches were light as a feather. Suddenly an adult humanoid yelled something in his native language. The male humanoid ran out of the cell. Two guards grabbed Joilee by both arms and escorted her out of prison. "Where are you taking me?" Joilee was led through a large door. The darkness from the hall did not help her sight going outside to the blinding light. The guards escort her into the middle of the arena and aggressively toss her onto the ground. Joilee got up and dusted herself off. She looked around and observed that she was now standing in an arena-like structure. They are using her as a gladiator for their amusement. They are planning on Joilee fighting in an arena in a trial by combat. Joilee knew she had to rely on her training in CQC and Marv Crave to see her through. More natives were gathered to see Joilee. The crowd cheered loudly as the chief of the tribe walked into the arena. His seat had the highest view. His servants were allowed to enter his private area. He wore a feather Mayan plumed feather hat, and Mayan waistcloth, and tribal tattoos. His name was Mantico. Mantico said a few words in his native tongue to boost the morale of his tribe. The crowd cheered before taking a seat. Joilee was pushed into the middle of the arena by one of the tall warriors. "What is going on?" Joilee asked with confusion and fear. Suddenly a gate opened, and a female warrior walked out with a carved stone dagger in her hand. Joilee stood alert in her fight stance of Magcrave and waited for her opponent to attack. Joilee pleaded with the female gladiator. However, the language barrier was not allowing her to be heard. The female warrior taunted Joilee to attack, but Joilee remained the non-aggressor. Finally, after failed attempt to get Joilee to strike, the female warrior decided to go on a primitive strike. The gladiator attacks, but Joilee evades while begging for a peaceful solution. The female gladiator attacks and slightly cuts her on the arm. Joilee snaps to attention counterattack the next episode with her Magcrave defense. Joilee disarms her attacker and throws her to the ground. Confused about what happened, the warrior rushed Joilee in an attempt to tackle her on the floor. Joilee uses her momentum to throw her to the ground. She became enraged as she removed another carved blade from her wrist belt. The warrior plunged toward Joilee. However, she received a straight-line punch to the jawline, knocking her unconscious. The crowd cheered as natives were entertained. The arena guards retrieved the unconscious warrior and carried her out. A larger female opponent emerges from the arena exit with a mace made of stone and a wooden handle. Joilee saw that this would not end soon, so she defended herself. Joilee did not know how many rounds she had to endure, so she dispatched opponents quick as possible. Over the past few weeks, Joilee held her own in the arena. She gained many fanatics. Even Mantico was cheering for her. Finally, however, Joilee's body was wearing out. During her last battle, she was faced with 3 opponents that were well-trained. Joilee had a hard time standing in combat. The combination of the dense air, lack of nutrition, and heat exhaustion were taxing to her health. Joilee could not stand any longer, as her eyesight faded to black as she collapsed. The gladiator women saw their chance to rid Joilee as they rushed to give a death blow. Mantico and ordered to stop. Mantico said a few words. The guards grabbed Joilee from the ground and carried her inside the arena. Days later, Joilee woke up inside a bedroom chamber. She rose from the bed made of stone with a mattress cushioned with feather plumes and alien beast hide. She found the smell to be a bit nauseating. However, the sweet aroma from the incense vessel made the odor bearable. Feeling exhausted, Joilee forced herself to her feet to look around. Joilee's Palmer was sitting on the stone table with Mayan-like carvings. She scanned the room and entered the artwork into her database. Joilee looked around more and found a 5-foot pool within the floor. While observing the room, 3 chambermaids walked into the room. They wore a small head decor with small-size feathers. They wore native clothing that was similar to the Incas. One carried a plate of food and set it on the table. The other carried clothes and set them on the bed. The other maid brought a jar that was shaped like a vase. It had etchings of a feather bird. She poured the contents from the vessel into the water. Joilee could tell that it was some fragrant oil. It quickly illuminated the room with a floral smell similar to gardenias. One of the chambermaids said something to the others in their native tongue. Each of the 2 chambermaids removed a dagger from underneath the slit of their dresses and approached Joilee. Joilee jumped back and went into her Magcrave defense stance. The 2 chambermaids looked at each other in a confused manner. The other chambermaid steps forward, taking the dagger from one of the maids. She made a gesture to Joilee. She cut some of her garments with the blade and pointed toward the bath. The maid offered the dagger to Joilee. Joilee immediately understood. She took the knife and cut off her damaged climate catsuit until she was completely nude. The main chambermaid took the catsuit and threw it into the fireplace in the middle of the room. The two other maids led Joilee into the water. Once Joilee was submerged in the water, she could feel the bath's soothing effects the oils put into the water. The handmaids bathed Joilee as a part of the ritual Joilee did not understand. After Joilee bathed, the chambermaids helped her out of the water and applied some medicated paste to her wounds. The chambermaid served Joilee a plate of berries. Joilee was hesitant of the unknown knowledge of what effect the food may have on her. As chambermaids encouraged her, Joilee decided to take the risk. She did not want to offend her host. It was not her first encounter with her alien diet. She had eaten substances that were given to her in the jail. If her Palmer was correct and about humans sharing 85% of their DNA, the food should prove harmless. She hoped it would not cause any allergic or fatal reaction a bit into a berry. She found it to be sweet and sour. Soon after, a woman with tattoos and a few body piercings walked into the room. The chambermaids immediately stood to their feet and lowered their heads in humility. Joilee figured she was a mother figure of the tribe or a highly reverenced woman. However, Joilee could tell she was some priestess by the look of her wardrobe. Her name was E.G.C. Besides the female warriors, E.G.C. was much taller than the other female natives. She had a darker skin tone, almost the shade of Joilee's. She wore a tribal priestly robe with her tribal designs. Her headdress was made of red jewels and red and white plume feathers. E.G.C. made a gesture for Joilee to stand. Joilee obliged as the priest walked around her. The priestess removed a dagger which caused Joilee to step back in caution. E.G.C. made a peaceful gesture and walked toward Joilee. She grabbed a few locks of Joilee's hair and cut a few samples. Then she asked Joilee to offer her a hand. Joilee extended her right hand. E.G.C. took the dagger and made a long deep slit on her lifeline in the palm of her hand. Joilee cringed in pain. E.G.C. collected the blood in 3 small wooden vials. E.G.C. orders the maid to bring the medicated paste and rub it in on the open wound. After E.G.C. was done, Mantico walked into the room and ordered everyone to leave. Everyone left except E.G.C. She hesitated as she gave Mantico an intense stare. She said a few words to Mantico, causing him to get upset. E.G.C. continued to talk, which only made Mantico more upset. Joilee wished she could understand what was going on. Mantico said something in his native tongue, which caused E.G.C. to get angry and storm out the chamber. Once Mantico and E.G.C. were alone, Mantico made his sexual advances toward Joilee. Joilee finally figured out why Mantico had this excited look on his face. He wanted her. Joilee fought off Mantico's advances. Mantico was getting very upset as he slammed Joilee to the ground and attempted to consummate her. Not knowing it would work, she kneed him in his groin cloth. Mantico fell over in pain. Holy shit. It hurts like hell for you men here too. Thank God for our near-identical DNA. Joilee replied, trying to catch her breath. Mantico got up and stormed out of the chambers. Moments later, Mantico was in E.G.C.'s divination chamber. She was preparing to perform some ritual with one of the vials with Joilee's blood. Mantico immediately expresses to E.G.C. his displeasure in their native tongue. How dare she reject me? I am the chief of my empire. I told you to wait until I have read her tonally. We know nothing of this alien, and you're ready to mate with her like she is just one of your common maids. It's my right. I am disturbed that we have seen an omen within the past weeks. We have seen fire fall from the sky, And suddenly this creature appears. You need to control your wanting urges. Sit, my son. E.G.C was a priestess who had a gift of divination. Like her, there are other priestesses in different tribes gifted with divination. She put a combination of herbs and resin on the coal-like rocks. Plumes of smoke rose from the fire. E.G.C emptied one of the vials of blood onto the herbs, causing white plumes of smoke to turn purple. E.G.C took in deep breaths of the smoke. They both received visions about Joilee that are mixed omens of good and evil. E.G.C found the visions unclear. That has not happened to her when she first received her gift as a child. All she knows is that Joilee's presence was a danger to herself and the E'G.C tribe. However, E.G.C received one vision that was clear. You and this creature are meant to be. You see, it only serves as my right that I should lay with her. You can't take part in her. She is not ready. She is not of our world. Yet, the E'G.C fate is bounded to her. What must I do, mother? You have to teach her our ways, show her how to survive here. If you don't, she will die, and so will our people. You will not participate in this woman until she knows how to survive here. She has to love you, and you return that love. But, most importantly, your hearts must combine as one. If these things do not happen, destruction will come to us.